Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Film Brits podcast. I'm your host Trilbee, the Riddler of film criticism, and today this is going to be, we're going to do things a little bit differently at the beginning, but then we're going to be doing a patron Q&A, where any patron who helps to keep the lights on here at Trilbee Reviews and on the Film Brits podcast via Patreon, get their questions answered, and we've got quite a few of them to get through, and I'll try and give some in-depth comprehensive answers to those. There'll be no lightning round this week because it's mainly going to be the patron questions, but I also just want to start this podcast off by giving just a quick reaction, because I've only just seen it. I literally just got out of the theatre about an hour and a half ago for Disney's new animated movie Moana, which came out this past week in the UK. Now, for those of you who do not know, if you've been living under some sort of rock, Moana is the latest from Disney Animation. It's a 3D animated film, and it's kind of the latest in a long line of Disney princess movies, which used to be their huge money-making staple back in the day, with Snow White or The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, basically just these movies about typically female lead characters who go on magical adventures with comedic animal companions or sidekicks and such. There's a few deviations to the formula, but every so often, but it has been a very tried and true formula and has worked very well for Disney in the past. However, in recent years, it seems like Disney's main profits and their main marketability aspects are coming from different aspects of their company. A couple of years ago, I would have said that, say, Pixar was the biggest thing that Disney had under its huge conglomerate umbrella, after Toy Story 3 made $1 billion, and Up and WALL-E, and all of these films were just massive successes for the studio. Then maybe a year later I would have said, Pirates of the Caribbean or their big Gore Verbinski epics are the biggest money-making thing that Disney have in their movie department, at least, after Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides somehow, despite being absolutely terrible, made $1 billion. And then you've got their Marvel Cinematic Universe with the Avengers and Civil War and Age of Ultron and Iron Man 3 all making over $1 billion. And of course you've got the Muppets, the first Muppet movie in their rebooted Jason Segel version made a lot of money, but the sequel Muppets Most Wanted was actually a box office disappointment, and the TV series has that it spawned has not done incredibly well ratings wise, even though I've heard very good things about it. And then, of course, you've got their Disney Princess label, where Frozen also made $1 billion and was massive, but then you get something like Zootopia, which makes $1 billion, and Finding Dory also makes $1 billion this year, and you just think Disney have their hands in so many incredible money-making pockets that you can kind of look past the fact that Alice Through the Looking Glass and the BFG bombed at the box office this year, because films like Zootropolis, Captain America Civil War, and others are just they're going to pick up the slack. And it seems like Moana, despite being part of that Disney princess staple, is going to be one of their smaller successes this year. And I think a reason for that is because it is not a groundbreaking fairy tale movie in the vein of, say, Frozen, which, despite the film having a lot of naysayers, that film was massive when it still is massive. You get people who are still buying the soundtrack, who are still singing the songs, and the songs are still on the radio, and because we're at Christmas, we are going to be seeing Frozen on the TV. We're going to be hearing the soundtrack when we go to shopping malls. We're going to be hearing Do You Want to Build a Snowman, whether we like it or not, this month in December near Christmas. And with Frozen, it played with Disney conventions, the idea of love at first sight or the princess and true love. It played with these ideas, including having a villainous twist in the third act, which I won't spoil just in case you're one of the 3 people in the world who have not seen in Frozen, but I highly recommend it. The film does have its detractors. My girlfriend is not a big fan of Frozen, but a lot of that was because it was so hyped up. It was so big that she was like, that was it. And I think if it didn't have that hype, she would have maybe responded better to it, and I think many other people would have as well. But it is what it is, and Moana is not going to be that groundbreaking thing, because it doesn't really play with genre conventions too much, other than its setting and its aesthetics, where it does portray what would you say, Polynesian culture, Hawaiian culture, and their mythology, and their art style, and all of this stuff. That's basically the most original thing that Moana has got going for it. In terms of themes, it's basically a cross between Pocahontas, in terms of it being In terms of the main character, Moana, who wants more out there, who's very in touch with a certain aspect of nature, a very particular aspect of nature, has a grandmother-esque figure guiding her along the way, and spirits and stuff. It also has aspects of Aladdin in Maui, where I think that Maui is a much more interesting character than the genie, but he's not as powerful in terms of just raw magical power and fighting prowess, or whatever you want to call it. I'm not saying that the genie from Aladdin is a bad character by any means, or that Robbie Williams was not good. He was amazing, and the genie is a fantastic character, but that's where my mind goes to when I think of Maui. And in terms of aesthetics, it's on the water, and it kind of reminded me a lot of The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, where there's a lot of sailing, there's a lot of there's a massive scale to it, and I think in terms of sheer geography, Moana is the biggest Disney movie we've had in a very long time, but mainly because a lot of that geography is just pure ocean and a couple of islands. And I think the thing about Moana, it doesn't tread much new ground thematically, but what it does with its characters and its aesthetic is that it's possibly the most polished version of the Disney princess trademarks that we've had for a while, because it feels like the characters aren't original, but they're compelling, they're relatable, you engage with them emotionally. And the villains, they're not breaking new ground, but they've got great songs, and they're a lot of fun, and there's just a few interesting artistic quirks as well. They encounter a group of pirates out on the sea, and they're just these small 1 or 2 foot high creatures, and you never actually see what they look like because they're wearing coconut shells. And what they do is that they draw the expression that they're feeling with chalk on the coconut shells that they're wearing. They'll draw angry faces and angry eyebrows and these scowls on their coconut faces in order to express their emotions. And the scene where they try to attack Maui and Moana is deliberately reminiscent of Mad Max Fury Road. I also got some Hercules vibes as well, because Maui, who is the demigod voiced by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, has got some tattoos on his body, which whenever he accomplishes some Herculean feat, a tattoo appears on his body which he's earned, which tells the story of what he did to earn that tattoo. And some of the Mauis represented on his body are sentient, and they move and they interact with Maui, and he's got a bit of a friendship with them. And when he annoys them, he says, Maui, the actual Maui says, if you annoy me again, you'll be sleeping under my armpit, I swear. He has a lot of good interactions with them, and they are hand-drawn. The tattoos on his body are not CGI. They are hand-drawn by artist Eric Goldberg, who was a veteran of the animation industry, working with Warner Brothers and Disney. He did a fantastic job on those, because there's a lot of character to these characters, even if they're not particularly original characters. The elderly woman who helps Moana, her grandmother, I even got Kubo and the Two Strings flashbacks, because there's an old grandmother figure in Kubo and the Two Strings who is like sort of the village crazy person, and even Moana's grandmother acknowledges herself to be the village crazy person who inspires Moana to go out and explore the seas and also to save the world. Yeah, and also, I think maybe one of the more original things that Moana does have going for it is the character of Maui, who, in terms of tone, feels a lot like the genie from Aladdin, but it's also, from a certain point of view, Maui is the villain of the movie, and I think Moana is an interesting team-up buddy movie, buddy road trip or buddy boat trip movie, where it is the hero and the villain having to save the day. I'm not saying that Maui is on the level of, say, Harley Quinn or Deadshot or the Joker or anything like, say, Suicide Squad. He is a flawed character, and I really liked his backstory. It wasn't anything incredibly original. I once again got Hercules vibes from his backstory, major Hercules vibes, but I think that it was polished enough, and it really works so well with what his actions towards the end of the film and his power set and what he was hoping to accomplish and the way he went about it. I think it was a really great realization of backstory, character and theme. I thought that while the ending was a little bit confused with what it was trying to say in terms of how Moana feels, I think with Maui, Disney really hit it out of the park with this one. The music, there's not as many songs as I thought there would be. However, Lin-Manuel Miranda and Opatea Foe, probably butchered that last name, have done a really good job. There's some really, really hummable earworm tracks. I'm normally not a fan of the whole big out there songs. I Want Adventure and the Great Wide Somewhere. I'm not really a huge fan of those songs. They're normally kind of my least favourite ones, even though I can appreciate how great they are. They're normally my least favourite ones. However, this version is called How Far I'll Go, and it's a really great tune. And one reason it works so well is because Ollie Crevallo, who plays Moana, she's only like maybe 15, 16 years old when she voiced the character. She has got some pipes on her. She has got some. She's incredible. She's brilliant in this, and I think that if Disney are wanting to capitalise on this person, which sounds cynical and terrible, but if they are wanting to do that, they're going to have to be quick if they want to, say, make a Moana Broadway show and maybe lock Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson down for just 3 weeks in 2018 or 2019, where he will be free and will be able to go on Broadway and play Maui, because I think Dwayne Johnson, not only is he a really good singer, I won't say he's great because he's not trained, but he is a great voice actor, because one thing that you really need to do when you are recording audio, I try and do it as well, even though I'm not necessarily successful, is that even though you are just using your voice and people are only hearing your voice, you need to use your whole body to make that voice convincing. You've got to overcompensate. You have to do flappy hands. You do have to really put your whole body into it so that these larger than life animated characters or podcasters can come across as compelling, real human people just through the voice alone. And Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is a committed guy. He is not only really talented, he just puts... There's no such thing as 90% with him. There's no such thing as 80, 70, 100% from the guy all the time in everything he does. Even in some of the material that I don't think is particularly good, like, say, San Andreas, he's still putting a lot of effort into that. He is still trying, and as a producer, he's a very passionate guy. And as Maui, he does a great vocal performance, both singing and dialogue-wise. I think he's really, really good in this. He also gets possibly the funnest song in the film, which is called "You're Welcome," which is just another example, without getting into spoilers, is another example of how effectively the movie uses character and theme to get across Maui's character arc. I think "You're Welcome" is not only just a great fun song on its own, but when you understand the journey that the character goes through and what he's been through, the vindication that he wants from people thanking him, and him saying to the world, "You're welcome, I am beloved and loved," it really means something. And I think while if there is a weakness in the film, it is once again that it does stick to formula to... It's not a fault, because it is polished, but if you're looking for an upending of Disney princess tropes, like say Frozen, or even Tangled to a lesser extent, you're not going to get it here. There is no girl empowerment or massive feminist angle here, other than Moana is just a strong female character, and her gender I don't even think is ever brought up in the film, which is a refreshing change of pace. But it's not going to get a lot of credit for that because it doesn't really draw attention to it. And I think that while Jermaine Clement is really fun as a sort of middle boss battle halfway during the film, and once again plays into Maui's growth as a character, I think he's the type of character who really could have wound up on the cutting room floor, and he is the focus of the post-credits scene, which you can skip it entirely. It's just a really poor reaching joke, just really trying to make a big Disney in-joke, and it's not worth it at all. You don't really get anything from it. He's got a fun song, and the character is interestingly designed, and the lighting during his song is really, really striking. But I think you could have maybe lost that. And I think the ultimate villain, maybe if it had more of a presence during the film, it only appears at the very beginning and at the very end. Maybe if it just had a tease halfway through, maybe just cutting to the fact, like maybe after a sequence with Maui and Moana, it just cuts to the ultimate big bad boss halfway during the film, just to let us know that boss battle is there and incoming. It kind of feels like you're still here. Oh, okay, I guess you're now the big bad boss that we've got to fight and save the world now. It does feel a little bit like an afterthought, which is a shame. But yeah, it's in terms of storytelling, it's incredibly polished. I was emotionally engaged. I liked the characters, particularly Maui. The voice acting was really, really good. I think that one slight upending that the film does is that it brings along this little pig character who's like Moana's pet, this little cute pig. And then you think, oh, this is going to be the cute animal sidekick that's going to be following Moana on this adventure. And then they do a bait and switch where it's, for lack of a better word, a retarded rooster. And I think, I don't even mean that as an insult, I mean just literally the medical diagnosis, that word. It's a dumb rooster who just seems to have a death wish and has no idea what it's doing. And it's a fun upending of the cute animal sidekick trope, but the fact that it does nothing plot specific does feel like a missed opportunity. But that being said, I think Maui is a very strong animated film, and it's a very solid entry in the Disney princess canon. It's hardly Beauty and the Beast. It's not quite as groundbreaking as, say, Frozen, if you're that way inclined. But I think it's on par with, say, Tangled, or The Princess and the Frog. That's the kind of camp that I would put it in. I think it's maybe slightly better than Mulan, better than Pocahontas, but it's not there with, say, Aladdin or The Little Mermaid. I think that Moana is you're going to have a lot of fun with it. I think kids over the age of 5 will get the most out of it. I think young kids will enjoy the light show and have fun, and they'll like the songs. They'll probably be singing in the theatres, and they'll want the soundtrack and everything. But I think to really appreciate the film, you do need to you will need to be paying attention. It's not one of don't bring screaming kids to the theatre, because that's not good for the kids, and that's not good for the people who paid to watch it. So let's go for 4 stars out of 5. That's my review/reaction to Moana. Really enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing what Disney do next in terms of their animated princess stuff, which their next animated film their next fairy tale film is going to be gigantic in 2018. And I don't mean the film's going to be huge, I mean at the moment it is actually called Gigantic, and it's going to be loosely based off the fairy tale Jack and the Beanstalk. There's no cast, I believe, but it's going to be directed by Nathan Greeno, who did Tangled, and also Meg LeFou, who wrote Inside Out and The Good Dinosaur, and is going to be writing the upcoming Captain Marvel, and she's going to be making her directorial debut with this film. So let's see how they go with Gigantic. We've also got Wreck-It Ralph 2. I don't think Disney have gotten an animated film in 2017, which feels a bit weird, but anyhow, that's Moana. Please let me know what you thought of Moana in the comments section below. Try to keep it spoiler free, as the film is still relatively new, and people might go in the comment section and find spoilers, and we don't really want that. Even though there's not much in the way of big surprises, I think that there are enough small twists in there, or a few character reveals that, or at least character moments that really shouldn't be spoiled, at least right now. We can talk about it in a few weeks' time, and I think I might even try and do a written or a video editorial on the character of Maui, maybe when the film comes out on DVD and Blu-ray, but that's where I stand right now on Moana. So thank you for listening to that. Now let's get to the main portion of the podcast, where I will be taking patron questions. Okay, folks, let's get to the questions. Now, the first patron question... Oh, by the way, if you want to submit questions normally, this episode I opened up the questions to anyone paying any amount of money, and I'll try and do that once a month or once every 2 months for patrons, so you don't have to just be part of that tier to submit a question, although if you are on a certain tier, you could submit every single week, but every so often I'll just open up to everybody. So we're going to be having some new faces this time, and the first new face is Jerome Giolando, who says, "Hello, just became a patron. Thank you, Jerome. My question is on the Sonic movie in 2018. As a big Sonic fan like you, I'm wondering if you think Sony is going to go through with this movie, because there has been absolutely nothing news related in like 2 years. And what maps from the games would you like to see in the movie, not counting Green Hill Zone, because that's too obvious?" Thank you for the question, Jerome, and thank you for just becoming a patron. I hate to correct you, but there has actually been a recent update in terms of the Sonic movie, and it is quite recent actually. It was early November, I think the news broke that Tim Miller, who was the director of Deadpool, One of the biggest hits of 2016, you may have heard of it. Tim Miller was let go of Deadpool 2 because there were creative differences between himself and Ryan Reynolds, allegedly over the budget, but I'm sure we're going to find out exactly what those grievances are going to be in time. But right now, they've got a director, I think, was it from John Wick? Or The Raid. They got basically a good replacement director, but Tim Miller was left with nothing to do for the next couple of years. So Sony quickly snapped him up, and he's now going to be directing the live-action animated hybrid Sonic the Hedgehog movie that was announced quite a while ago. And they're going to be... one of the executive producers is also working on the Fast and Furious movies, and Blur Studios, who did the test footage for the Deadpool, the Deadpool film, the test footage that leaked. They've also done CG trailers for Titanfall 2, Doomed, Mafia 3, worked on Halo 2 and the Master Chief Collection and such. They're now going to be involved in the new Sonic the Hedgehog movie. So I'm guessing that there was really either just the bare bones script in place for Tim Miller to work with, or maybe if they're bringing in a new studio to work with this film, it's going to be... The film was still in pre-production, basically. It was still in the writing process, I'm guessing. But that is the latest news for the Sonic the Hedgehog film. So I think they've got Tim Miller, who has directed... in his very first feature film, directed one of the biggest and most critically successful films of the year. A massive success. Deadpool came out of nowhere, and it actually outgrossed Batman v Superman in many territories. I think it actually outgrossed Batman v Superman in America, but because it didn't open in China, it didn't outgross it worldwide, but it probably would have done. It was a massive film. Critics loved it. For many people, it's their favourite superhero movie of the year, and this is a year where Captain America Civil War came out, so that is no mean feat. That is no small feat. Does mean feat mean that was a big feat? I don't know. Either way, mean, big, it did very well. But as for what... they're going to go through with it. Sony are really looking for a franchise to mine for a while, and I think Sonic the Hedgehog is as good a franchise as any. I don't like the idea of the live-action and animation hybrid movie. If they're going to be doing anything with that concept, I think they should do something like, say, the movie Dinosaur that Disney did in the year 2000, where it's real-life environments and real-life landscapes, but the characters are animated. I don't want to see human beings interacting with Sonic. Like, in anime form, like in Sonic X, it can help, and maybe as a couple of ancillary characters in the 3D games, yes, but I can't imagine Dr. Robotnik being anything other than his perfectly circular body. I can't imagine anyone pulling off that moustache. Like, I don't want a Who Framed Roger Rabbit situation. I want a animated Sonic film, preferably maybe stylized in a way, or maybe reminiscent of the cutscenes from, say, Sonic Unleashed, or what was the other one? Sonic Generations, something in that vein. And I think it can be done. I just don't see why they need a live-action hybrid like, say, the Smurfs or Alvin and the Chipmunks or the first few Scooby-Doo movies. No, you don't need that approach for Sonic. The character is strong enough to work on his own without anchoring him to celebrity cameos or real-life locations. It doesn't need to be done. But to the second part of your question, Jerome, what maps from the games would you like to see in the movie, not counting Green Hill, because that's too obvious? I'm going to be answering this question with no idea of what the plot is, and with no, thoughts on the logistics of doing it. Like, I'm going to say that I think Spagonia from Sonic Unleashed, which is is it Spain? It's this European city that is it's like a burnt orange buildings, and it's the best stage of the game. The music's outstanding. It's so much fun, and there's the clock tower as well that he circles as it strikes 3 o'clock, as it basically the bell goes off as he circles around it. It's a great stage, and then he grinds down it and spirals the clock tower. It's a terrific level. And in terms of I have no idea how this is logistically going to work, but maybe something like Crisis City from Sonic 2006, where it's this dystopian future where there's fire tornadoes or floating rocks. As much as the level was terribly executed in Sonic 2006 because the game was just rushed as hell, so technically it was an absolute mess. The level design for Crisis City in 2006 it's fine. It works in terms of a level, and it's well designed. It's satisfying to play for the most part until you get to the fast segments where it's impossible to do it without getting hit. It's an absolute mess. It's kind of broken in a way, but you can get through it just by sheer luck, I think. But when they did Sonic Generations and they improved it and remastered it, for lack of a better word, it was once again a great stage, and the music was awesome as well. In terms of like Sonic's world, though, I think once again, giving no thoughts to how it should be done logistically, that chemical plant. I think the blue pipes and the grey or silver framework and the blue goop, I think that's really... There's nothing like that on the big screen. There's nothing like that in animated films, and I think it's that sort of the original architecture and the original landscapes from Sonic the Hedgehog that would really work in a animated format. And you don't get like the chemical plants. You don't get cities like Spagonia, at least they're detailed in the way they are in the game, and also Crisis City. You don't get that in real life, which is why a live-action hybrid movie, it's a stupid idea. But yeah, chemical plants is one that I'd go for. You probably need a snow level, like when he's snowboarding in Sonic Adventure, and when there's the Arctic level in Sonic Unleashed, but I couldn't really say which one specifically. So yeah, I'm going to go for Spagonia, I'm going to go for Crisis City, and I'm going to go for the chemical plant from Sonic 2. Those are the three that I would like to see in the Sonic movie, if that is the approach that they go for. I think Spagonia would be great. Just any European city with an architecture like that. Just make it like a fictional European-esque city for him to run around with. And I think that would just be a feast for the eyes if they get it right in a great action set piece. The next question comes from Anne Neubauer. I think I pronounced that right. This is quite a long one, but I'm going to read it, just so you get the full context for what Anne is saying. So, can you talk about the psychology of fame? This is a question I would ask anybody who either is famous or who is a passionate fan. What I mean is, for all the positives of popularity, a famous person seems to have to sacrifice privacy. For all the accolades and admiration, famous people are also subject to rude fans, trolling, paparazzi, and all sorts of violations of personal boundaries. These things break my heart. At fan conventions, I am quick to dissuade fellow fans from engaging in creepy behaviour with regards to actor guests. I believe any person who has any kind of following can be subject to the dark side of popularity. I also believe any fan can have an emotional fanboy/fangirl moment, but we can choose to be respectful to our idols. You could answer this question as a fan, as a person with a following, or as both as you see fit. How do you keep sane amidst all this? Now, so that's a very good... It's a complex question, but it's also a very good question, and it's something that... as we become more obsessed with celebrity culture, is something we're going to have to address. And I think what's interesting about this current media landscape that we're in is that we hold celebrities to such a standard, whether it's in terms of what they do in their lives or their appearance or things like that. And because let's say Brad Pitt, for example, I have seen a lot of his movies. I have watched a lot of his interviews, and I've seen him at a lot of award ceremonies, and I know a lot about the work that he has done. However, some people may interpret that knowledge as actually knowing the guy, and I think that when you are unable to make that distinction, if you maybe watch a particular YouTuber who you listen to their podcasts, you watch their videos, or you watch everything they do, and because of the very grounded nature of something like YouTube, where it's like one-on-one, like I'm just talking here as I'm like your pal, I'm talking, and because it's YouTube, I'm not working for a company, I'm not like this isn't a commercial product, I'm just talking with you, I interact with you in the comment section. People kind of misinterpret that as just knowing the person. Like there are so many people I don't get it to say the level of a PewDiePie, obviously, but there are people who are very, very quick to make assumptions about my personal life, or are very quick to assume stuff that I'm doing, and it's like you don't know me, you don't know what I do in my day-to-day life. Like when I don't do a video for a couple of weeks, people are like, "Oh, you don't do anything. Why?" I've got jobs, I've got stuff to do, I've got people to look after, I have responsibilities and all of that. But that's just it on a small scale. But maybe say like on a Brad Pitt and an Angelina Jolie, who have just split up. When you've got a Tom Cruise or a Kim Kardashian, so I just throw up a little bit, or a Simon Cowell, and there's just all this scrutiny. I was in the shop the other day. This just came to me. I was in a shop the other day. I think it was Morrison's, and by the checkout, by the tills, the cash registers, they were selling some magazines. Just quick impulse buys, buy it for £1, and when you're at the till, when you're at the register, just do it. And the front page was like the front cover. This wasn't content or pictures inside. This was the front cover that it was selling itself on. Was photos of botched plastic surgeries from current topical celebrities like Simon Cowell and all these other people, and it's the front cover. It's like why are you being so overly scrutinizing of these people? A lot of the photos were it's these photos. There's a lot of I've noticed it in YouTube thumbnails as well. When you want to directly try and bring someone down or punch down to somebody or whatever, you take a frame of the video where they are pulling an uncompromising face, maybe one eye is blinking faster than the other, or maybe their lip is in a weird position, and then it's oh, this person's stupid, even though if you caught me at a very similar frame, I'd look exactly... It's a lazy way to make somebody appear really, far worse than they actually are. And they know that they're doing this. They know that they're doing... they're making them look disingenuously stupid in a way to try and just make people feel entitled or make people feel superior to that. And I think that's that punching down of celebrities who are people too. You forget that Brad Pitt is... Angelina Jolie and all these... I don't know why I go back to Brad Pitt. I think I've maybe got the movie Allied on the brain, or I don't know, I don't know. But you watch his movies, so you just think of him as this superstar guy, who he is. That's his career. But he's also a person with fears, desires, a routine. He's got stuff that... He's a person. He is fallible like the rest of us. To err is human. And I think when we have this incredible celebrity culture... that's very easy to forget, and it's also the same with online culture as well, and how we forget to treat each other as people because they're just words on a screen, they're bits, they're kilobytes going through a random series of tubes. We forget about these people as being actual people, and I'm guilty about this as much as anybody. I try to rectify it whenever I catch myself doing it, and I try not to do it, but we're all going to do it. It's just the culture that we're in, and it's internet culture. We've got to adapt to it, we've got to change, we've got to acknowledge it. And also when it comes to, I can't imagine being, say, Justin Bieber's cousin, or Justin Bieber's family member or whatever, and going onto Twitter and seeing all of these news stories, Justin Bieber has died. And then it turns out it's just the 5th time this has been a hoax. These people know that they're wrong. They're just after the traffic. There's a lot of, a lot of it's got to do with clickbait or causing outrage. It's just this culture of the internet that we've got. I think there's a big reason for this massive outrage culture that we've got at the moment from both sides. I'm not talking about SJWs or whatever. It's from both sides. It's from right, it's from left, it's from liberal, conservative, Labour. It's both sides of this. It's this outrage culture that is being perpetuated by these people who are let's just create a disingenuous headline or something that is provably wrong, but we get that click, we get that one click, and we get those 10,000 clicks. We get enough clicks for enough ad revenue to keep this gravy train going for a little bit longer. And I think that the internet needs to adapt to that in order to stamp that out, but we're too busy caught in that cycle to fix it. And I think that I've gone to maybe a very different place than what you were expecting or wanting, Anne Neubauer, and I apologise for that. But I think it's all part of a bigger thing. And there's of course a lot of image standards as well. Like when let's say Kim Kardashian posts a selfie, that selfie has been and when she sells it hashtag natural or hashtag no make, that picture, even though it's just an Instagram thing, because when you think Instagram, you think just take a photo, maybe put a filter on it, and bam, it's up. That's how many people use Instagram. Not celebrities like the Kardashians, who they take a photo, and I'm certain they do this. They run it through a department. That photo is taken on a phone or on a camera. It's run through several marketing departments, through maybe Kim Kardashian's team or whatever. They Photoshop it, they touch it up, and then it goes on Instagram. It's not a natural thing, and it's, once again, it is internet culture. It is these this image of celebrities that is so deeply ingrained into our culture, and in the internet age, it has found a new home. It has found a new lease on life, and once again, we're just caught in the system. We're caught in the system to such an extent that we can't really fix it at the moment, which is very, very upsetting and annoying, but it's the world that we're currently in. And props to you, as you mentioned in your question, like when you see that like rude fans or like, I guess, the violation of personal boundaries at conventions and stuff, that you are quick to, like, if you do call it out, then props to you. Like, it's what you should do. Like, she's not a celebrity, but there's somebody I know on Facebook who's just posting earlier today saying that she caught somebody on, I think it was the train or the London Underground. She caught them just taking a photo of her. They were creepily stalking her on the London Underground or on the train, just taking photos of her as she was just going about her day. And like, she's not a celebrity, but it's that sort of disattachment that we have to people. And whether they're celebrities or people that we just encounter on the street, we need to remember that we are all just people at the end of the day. And it's easy to get swept up in it. Like I said, I'm guilty of it as myself. I'm not trying to be the sole voice of reason or the one guy who's telling it like... I'm as guilty as anyone else. I think it's just up to us, and just to try and help people eventually over time overcome it. And I think with the internet and culture being as it is, and this obsession with selfie culture and celebrity culture and all these magazines and newspapers and stuff that hold them to, like, that are just after short-term gains with like relatively little effort or thought. There's too much short-term money to be made from it, I'm afraid. So it's just being able to spot it when you see it and just calling it out when you can, and telling other people as well. But I'm not going to claim to be like a massive celebrity, but I've had my fair share of people who are just crossing personal boundaries, or like people who message my friends and family, or who add me on Facebook and then add my girlfriend on Facebook and try to and stuff like. There are limits there. I've got my own limits, and it's stuff that I don't like being crossed. But that's my very lengthy answer to what was probably a complex question. I may not have gotten to everything you wanted either, but hopefully that's a good enough answer for you, Anne. So next question comes from Winter, who says, we've heard in previous episodes, videos and podcasts what you think of episodes of Doctor Who, but I'd like to hear about an episode you would pitch to Stephen Moffat for Series 10 of Doctor Who. Admittedly, we don't know much about the new companion Bill, or as Bill, so I suggest you make it a companion light episode like Midnight or Blink. I'm going to slightly cop out with this answer, Winter. I do apologise, but there was a time when I was attached to write for the fan series Doctor Who Generations. I wrote the first 2 episodes, and I was planning to write another 2 later on in the series, but those plans fell through. But it was a very fun experience for me personally, as I actually got to write a bit of Doctor Who, even if it was just on a small scale, and sort of just look at, like, have my very own original stamp, even if it was something that didn't see the light of day properly, or like as the fan series. But there was one episode, in terms of concept, that I was immensely proud of. It's not been released in any form, and I think I'm the only one who's actually seen the script, although the person who was like the head of Doctor Who Generations has saw the like plot breakdown, the 2 or 3 page synopsis, and I thought, this is actually really good. I don't want to toot my own horn or like blow it up too much. However, what I've done since then is that I've adapted that story into its own original feature film script. So I don't want to tell it. Like, that sounds like an absolute cop-out. I'll give a little hint in that it's far removed from Doctor Who now. It's taken the same story, but the characters are different, and it's longer, obviously, because it's now a feature script that I've written, or I'm working on and just touching up every now and again. sounds wrong. But it's basically a supernatural, like it's a horror drama about like generational ghosts, like the spirits of ancestors, and a story of legacy and loss and parental figures and stuff like that. I'm speaking very broadly because I don't want to give away the plot, because it is something that I'm hoping to like finish writing and maybe like put in front of people and maybe see if something can be done, because it's even though it is like supernatural, it is very character driven, low budget, so who knows. I just don't want to put it out there in case someone either steals it or something does happen. I don't mean that personally against anybody, it's just better to be safe. So instead of just pitching an episode of Doctor Who, I'm just thinking that if for some reason I was the head of the BBC, or they were like, okay, Trilbee, Mr. TARDIS, you have got 10 minutes in a room with Stephen Moffat to discuss Doctor Who Series 10, and he will listen to you. He will not dismiss you. He does not have to go with what you say, but he will listen, and he will take stock and listen and make notes and pay attention. What I would say during those 10 minutes is, right, self-contained stories. The series is becoming too complicated for its own good. It is losing people because of that, because you are losing the standalone stories. Who cares about... You could get the best celebrity guest for the mid-series finale. You could get just the great directors or the marketing campaign or whatever, but no one's going to watch it if they know if it's part of a huge overarching thing, and they know that they're going to be completely lost within the first 10 minutes. You need those standalone stories back from the Russ T. Davies era, and even the early Stephen Moffat stuff, like Series 5. There was the crack in the wall, but it only really developed much later on in the series when people were already firmly on board, and even there was the occasional hint or the occasional thing happening, like say in not Cold Blood, Vampires of Venice. There was hints about the vampires losing their homeworld. There's stuff like that. I think you go back to that. You need these standalone stories in order to not only just get a huge variety in your series. This is a sci-fi series where the literal premise is go anywhere, go anywhen, meet anyone, do anything. And I think just limiting it to just London Earth every other week is just incredibly stifling. And I think just bringing back the same rotating cast, it's just a waste of potential. So it's standalone stories, varied locales, and you can have a recurring element or a recurring motif that pays off towards the end of the series, but it is that. It's a motif. It's a small thing in every episode. It's not a massive overarching epic, because it's Doctor Who with a family audience. You're not going to get as many committed like Game of Thrones or Walking Dead fans, because it's a younger audience who don't quite have those attention spans yet. If you're doing that for, say, something like Torchwood or maybe something like Class, which I've not seen, then have at it. But when it's Doctor Who, when it's the Sarah Jane Adventures, when it's K9 and company, when you are aiming for that younger demographic who are going to be the ones who want to buy the toys, who nag their parents to buy the DVDs, they are the audience who you need to continually engage. And you may have to compromise a couple of story things, and I'm all for the story and less for the committee marketing approach, but you've got to have that balance, otherwise Doctor Who stagnates, and it loses its budget and it inevitably dies. So I'm just trying to think logistically as well as storytelling wise. That's the kind of the balance I'm hoping to straddle here, Winter, if that makes sense. That sounded so wrong. What is the innuendo? I'm straddling Winter. I apologise. And in terms of I think one very clever thing that series, I think this hasn't been done since Series 7? Was it Series 6? I think it's Series 6 with The Girl Who Waited. Every so often, you maybe blow the budget on the finale, so you do have a bottle episode, you do have something like Midnight. You do have something like The Girl Who Waited, which is relatively lower budget. You've got something without the main actors like Love and Monsters or Blink, which is smaller in scale and much more grounded and down to earth. And I think Doctor Who could maybe stand to have a few more of those, because it means that the writers don't run away with their imaginations. I think that if Steve Moffat was like, okay, well, at least whoever is Steve Moffat's superiors, Steve Moffat currently has the entire collection of Lego. He's got everything ever, and as a result, like, it's not coherent. He's assembling everything with it. It's not gelling. Give him a 500-piece set. Just the one set, or maybe a couple of sets, but less than 500 pieces of Lego. And he has to make something out of those. He's got to be more creative. He's got to be more economical. And I think that's the best way to approach Doctor Who, because after Series 8 and Series 9, which are like two low points for the entire history of the show, not just the revived series, I think the quality is kind of on par with, say, early Sylvester McCoy at the moment. And I think Sylvester McCoy had some great stories, but there was also a lot of trash moments, a lot of stuff that's not good and many fans would rather forget. And also, say, let's say The Twin Dilemma or Warriors of the Deep, sort of that mid to late 80s, that low quality that was becoming slightly more prolific with Doctor Who when it was under increased scrutiny, because the BBC were looking for an excuse to axe it, so it was just a bad time as well. And I think that we need that more simple, bare bones, basic concept, and also to utilise the themes of the programme. And I think I'm kind of preaching to the choir here. At least I think I am. I think that when it got to, say, Hellbent, I was hearing a lot of people say the same complaints that I'd been saying for a while, and while it was a bit gratifying to be vindicated, it was also showing that things were not improving and things were actually getting worse. And now Doctor Who needs to rekindle a lot of that faith within the fan base and within the casual viewer. And I think maybe a bare bones Series 10, or maybe just getting a crack team of writers together, 10 episodes or whatever you want to do, 10 stories, and just go to town on the quality and don't have any recurring themes. Just standalone, different tones in every story. Maybe not every single week, but just different locales and locations and casts, and just keeping it fresh every single story. And I think that's the way to do it. So the next question comes from Dean Jones, who asks, with the film adaptation of Assassin's Creed nearly here, blimey, it's less than a month away. My question this time is, if the film is a critical and commercial success, what video games would you like to see be adapted for the big screen? I know it's already in the works, but I hope the Uncharted movie is great, as the series is one of my favourites as a gamer. I think I've talked about this quite a bit on the podcast previously, so I may be treading old ground or repeating myself, so I apologise for that. But I think one reason why it's been difficult to get a good video game movie made, hopefully, we don't even know if the Assassin's Creed is going to be it yet, is because we haven't quite cracked the formula. So there are certain movies games like The Last of Us or Uncharted that are heavily narratively driven and with great production values and compelling stories that people enjoy following. However, do we want Uncharted to be like Spawn for comic book movies, or do we want The Last of Us to be Steel from the 90s, or The Phantom or whatever? Do we want to maybe save some of the bigger, more iconic franchises for later on, so we don't get a repeat of the Super Mario Brothers movie? We get the formula down, we understand the tone, or we get people on board who want to do justice to the source material and are not just seeing a franchise that they've been handed the reins to out of money or profit from a producer from higher up. One reason Sam Raimi's Spider-Man worked so well was because he is a honest-to-God geek who loves Spider-Man and loves the material. One reason why X-Men, Bryan Singer's X-Men worked so well was because even though Bryan Singer was not a huge fan of the comic books, he saw the potential for the for the civil rights allegories that were always present in the material, and he brought them up to the modern day. He was passionate about the themes, even if he wasn't necessarily passionate about the source material. We need people like Sam Raimi or Bryan Singer to be working on the video game movies. And once that happens, once we get somebody who isn't just a fan, like say, forget his name, guy who worked on Source Code, Moon, and the Warcraft movie. Like, I've not seen Warcraft yet, but it just seems like it's one of those movies that is only for the fans, and only fans will understand it. We need that balance of someone who's a fan, but is also distant enough to understand exactly how it works and how it can appeal to a mass audience, like, say, Sam Raimi did for Spider-Man, or Bryan Singer did with X-Men, or Jon Favreau did with Iron Man, or Christopher Nolan did with Batman. With that in mind, adaptations that I would like to see, I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, but I think The Legend of Zelda: The Ocarina of Time is a great fairy tale story that could be adapted, because you've got if you just go back a couple of weeks, you'll be able to hear me talk about it. But I think the theme of literally having your childhood robbed of you, and then you are sent to the future to save the world, but if you save the world, you lose your childhood forever. You could always just go back to the past in The Legend of Zelda and just live out your child. You can just be a child, and the town centre is always nice and jovial, and there's people down there. It's a great place to be in, but there is this impending darkness that you, as a hero, you have to defeat. But if you do it, you will be losing your childhood in the process. I think there's a lot of powerful themes to be gleaned from that material, and that is, it's not so much it is a franchise and a particular story that I think really could be adapted. I don't know if it would work as a movie, but a TV series possibly, maybe a Netflix animated series of Star Fox 64 or Lilac Wars, because I think that story, while relatively bare bones, it's got the production value. You just use the music, because it's amazing. Koji Kondo's music from that game is just spectacular. And you just take the set pieces, and every set piece is a 30-minute episode, and you have the relatively similar dialogue and the same iconography and the same moments, and you just adapt that into a 10-episode Cartoon Network series or Netflix animated series or something. I think you keep it family friendly, you make it animated so that the anthropomorphic animals, the animals that walk on two legs, that's fine. You don't live action CGI hybrid that. Don't do that. I think maybe Mega Man as an animated film in the vein of, say, the CGI Astro Boy, at least in terms of art style, not necessarily in quality, would also be a good one. Just trying to think of more recent stuff as opposed to like the more retro or nostalgia gleaned stuff. One issue with doing I was talking about this on the podcast, the Movie Mania podcast, last week with Trey, or this week I should say. And one difficult thing about doing a video game adaptation as opposed to, say, a book or a comic book is that, we'll say a comic book, you are adding movement to the panels, you are adding voices, you are adding to the source material to bring it to the big screen. With a book, you are taking just written words and you are giving visuals to them. You are literally creating this world that only existed in the pages of this book. You are building the sets, you are creating this iconography, really. Like the Harry Potter series was taking just the words of J.K. Rowling and making it tangible, making these sets and worlds and these props and these costumes. With video games, it's different, particularly modern video games with big budget Hollywood style spectacle. Because when you adapt, say, Uncharted or The Last of Us or Gears of War or Halo, you are actually taking away something. You're taking away the gameplay. Would a The Last of Us movie be as effective as the game if you are not in control of Joel or Ellie and you are feeling every kill you do? Because The Last of Us is deliberately making the human-to-human encounters incredibly close and intimate and brutal, and the way you take out these people, particularly when you use your fists or your feet or you smash them against walls, it is making sure you know that you are hurting your own kind. You are hurting these people. The zombie encounters are much more detached. You are shooting people who are infected, they're dead, they are the fodder. But when you're killing people, your own, people who you should be siding with, the camera angles get closer, the action gets more frenetic and much more difficult. would the Last of Us movie be as effective if you were just passively watching? You'd be, if it was done well enough, you'd be emotionally engaged with the story and the characters and their struggle, but would you feel that intimacy of the kill? And that sounds kind of sadistic, but that's what The Last of Us is going for. Would you lose something in an adaptation like that? And I think that is the formula that needs cracking. And I think that that might be why you go for the retro stuff first, where you have these cartoony visuals, this sprite work, these 64 polygons, 64 pixels or whatever, 64 bits. You are actually adding stuff, you're adding clarity, you're adding the production values. I think you should tackle those first, because there's more to work with and you can find your footing as a subgenre for the video game adaptations before you get to the current ones. As much as I would love to see an Uncharted movie like yourself, Dean, and I'm hopeful for Assassin's Creed, I think that video game adaptations are going to lose something from their counterparts. They'd have to come up with their own original stories and their own original narratives in order to justify their existence at this point, at least, until they find out that formula that make it work. Because the Assassin's Creed movie is an original plot. It is different. It's new characters. It is a new setting. It's the Spanish Inquisition. And I think that's a better approach than, for example, just doing Assassin's Creed 2, but a movie. And while I wouldn't be adverse to that in principle, I think at this stage we need those original plots, but can they actually pull it off? And I'm hoping they do. I'm crossing every appendage. And the final question of the podcast comes from Edward Sweet, who asks, what has been your favourite trailers of the 2010s so far? Mine are the final trailer for The Force Awakens and the first trailer for The Raid 2. My answer to this question is basically going to be a stream of consciousness, as I've not actually got I've not got one trailer. I've not got one example that I can point to and be like, yes, that's one of the best. I've got quite a few. I loved the first trailer for Pacific Rim, where they've got the voice actress for GLaDOS from Portal. That might actually be a good video game adaptation if you give the main character a voice and a personality. That's adding something. That's the type of formula I'm on about. That's actually something I've stumbled across, Dean. Hopefully that's a good enough answer. You add something by giving like the empty slate protagonist a character. That's something. But yeah, that first trailer for Pacific Rim and that one long shot of them dropping the Jaegers into the ocean, and the camera starts panning over slightly, and you can see a third one just in the background making its way towards them. It's a great shot. It's a great moment, and it just sells the giant monsters and the giant robots angle. And we are cancelling the apocalypse indeed. That's how you end a trailer, and a rocket-powered fist, of course, really, really helps. I like the trailer for Iron Man 3 a lot as well, because with the Marvel trailers, like the big money shot of the first Iron Man trailer was the tank missile. With Captain America: The First Avenger, you've got the heroic shot of him and his soldiers breaking through that wooden door and shooting, that slow motion shot. With Thor, you've got these epic shots of him destroying mountains with his hammer. And also with the Avengers, the big money shot was the Avengers coming together and Hulk smash and all of this stuff. And then Iron Man 3 comes along, and the money shot of Iron Man 3's first trailer is not a heroic moment. It's not a moment of victory. It's a moment where his house in Malibu is destroyed and he's been drowned, basically, in his suit. And then he's just carrying the wrecked suit, the Mark 42, in the snow, barely illuminated by his chest, his arc reactor. It's basically the trailer equivalent of the Batman 60s TV series. How is Iron Man going to get out of this one? Tune in in May or June, whenever the film came out. Same bat time, same bat channel. It takes the moments of heroism that we've seen before and showing that post-Avengers, this is going to be very different. We're going to be exploring some darker ideas here. The money shot of the trailer isn't a moment of heroism, it's a moment of defeat for Iron Man. It's a moment of defeat for Tony Stark, where he is literally carrying around the baggage of his insecurities in the snow with him. That's a great trailer. It's a really well thought out trailer, and it also came at an appropriate time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Another trailer, it's not so much the trailer, it's the money shot. It's the final seconds of the trailer. Disney's trailer for Oz the Great and Powerful. And you see a ball of fire coming to Oz, and it lands in the yellow brick road. And fire and flames start erupting from the pit, and you see the silhouette of the Wicked Witch of the West. And it's that moment when I thought, yes, Sam Raimi was born to put this character on the big screen. That is a money shot that, I don't know about everybody else, but that's a money shot that gets my butt in the theatre, make no mistake about that. Other cool money shots, G.I. Joe Retaliation, the mountain fight. I don't really think that's a great trailer, at least maybe not a massively noteworthy one, but I think that the mountain fight is an awesome moment. I like the trailer for the Hobbit movies. Those are very good. What else have we got? I love the trailer for How to Train Your Dragon 2. That sounds really, really random, but you get the emotional core of the story, you get to know the characters, you see the epic scope. I think it's a really awesome moment. I'm just thinking of... I'm more thinking of moments as opposed to awesome shot, at least as awesome trailers as a whole. In The Walk, the trailer for that, and like the IMAX trailer, and the last 30-40 seconds is showing him taking his first steps on the wire. That's an incredible shot, and it's only teasing at what is actually in the movie. The ending of the Adventures of Tintin trailer, where that came out in 2010, right? I think so. That's an awesome shot where he is zip wiring down. It's all one shot, and he's like, "Hang on, Tintin!" Mad Max Fury Road had incredible trailers as well. The Marvel ones are, of course, really noteworthy, like Guardians of the Galaxy and its great use of music. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is also a really, really great trailer. The Logan trailer was really effective. Days of Future Past, We Need You to Hope Again. Some really great trailers, but the ones you talked about, the Force Awakens one, I can imagine those being the Force Awakens one being amazing if you are a huge hardcore Star Wars fan. For me, it didn't quite have that effect, but I can absolutely understand it for people who were really moved by it. So, like the Chewie We're Home, if that is the trailer you're referring to, and the first trailer for the Raid 2. That's a really good trailer. That's a good shout, actually. That's the trailer when I've not watched the Raid 2, so I couldn't tell you the characters' names, but it's it's kind of underscored by the audio of this guy just punching at a wall really, really quickly and really expertly. That's a really good audio hook for the trailer. A really great visual. It's something that sticks out with me a lot, even though I've not actually seen the film yet. So yeah, good shout on those ones, Edward. And that wraps up the podcast for this week. So thank you so much for listening to this episode of Film Brits, and thank you so much to the patrons for submitting some really, really good questions. That's some really good discussions there. So keep the discussion going in the comment section if you're listening to this on YouTube. You can also subscribe on iTunes and listen through there, or listen through SoundCloud. I'd massively appreciate it if you could leave comments or reviews and likes and whatnot. I'd hugely appreciate that. And also subscribe to those outlets if you can subscribe on iTunes or your podcast app on Android. I don't really know what that is because I don't have an Android phone, so that could have been a massive lie. Maybe I don't even know if I'm available on Android like this podcast is. I should find out. So thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to become one of those patrons who are able to submit questions, be sure to visit www.patreon.com/Trilbee. Be sure to visit my website, www.trilbee.com, where I've recently been doing quite well catching up on some of my review and box office and preview content, so be sure to check out my website there. And also one funny note about my website, I actually saw quite a big traffic spike over the past couple of weeks. I think that's because I've been DDoS'd on my website, but because I wasn't using it so much over the past couple of weeks because I've been so busy, it practically did nothing. So because on my website I've got like a view or page view counter, which is just, I didn't even ask for it. I think it's the website creators just put it in. It's always interesting. And for let's take a look here. Let's go a bit older stuff. Like my box office stuff, unless it's like a huge film that I'm talking about that had a big opening weekend or broke a few records, I normally don't crack like say 300 or 400 reads for that, which is fine. Like, it's box office stuff. It's mainly something I do out of habit and also because I'm personally interested. But then when my August ones for David Brent's Life on the Road and Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates got like two, like it's the same ballpark as well, 2,400-ish. It's that same ballpark, and a load of my articles and stuff on my website were around that same point in the view counter, and I think somebody has just sent like tried to DDoS me, and it's like done practically nothing. So thank you for just giving me a load of views, I guess. I just thought that was funny. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and I shall speak to you folks next time. Thank you so much.